It's an old-fashioned lock and it gets jammed sometimes. Try and lock it. Can't turn the key. That bit doesn't come out. What I'm going to do is open it up, see if I can fix it. Got a Phillips head screwdriver to take this bit out. Blade screwdriver for this part. See if it gets any better for not having this plate on it. Still jammed. Alright, gonna test this thing out now on the bench. Alright, it's coming out a bit, but the key's not turning all the way. That's from the outside of the lock. It's just really stuck there. From the inside, gets stuck just here. You can see the pieces moving inside there. Not really sure what's going on. I can't imagine this is too complex of a piece of machinery. So I'm going to open it up and have a look. One screw. And that just come out. It's been lubricated with graphite powder. You can see that in here, which is good. Sometimes people go spraying WD-40 and that sort of penetrine stuff into locks. That's not a good idea for locks. They need to be lubricated with a dry lube such as graphite. That part's working fine. It's this part that's not really playing the game. I do want to see if I can find a place where it's binding up. Okay. If you have a look in there, it almost looks as though this little piece here isn't lifting quite as far enough as it should. And you can try and jiggle the key in the lock, but it doesn't have much wriggle room. And then when it gets around to here, it's also jamming on something. This whole assembly here just seems to not line up with that little pin in there. I'll lift that up a little bit and it all turns nicely. Just going to take these out. Going to be an interesting task. These look like little kind of springs, plastic springs. So will they come out one at a time, or three? So I'm taking these out in order. They're numbered 1, 3, 3, and 5, which 1, 3, 3 and 5, which is interesting. There's 5 pieces and 3 of them are labelled 3. So this is the order they came out. What I'm going to do now is actually turn the key and see if it binds up here. Seems to be moving just fine. What I initially thought might be a problem is that this mechanism was getting cocked one direction or another and then not sliding in and out because it was hooked up on the cylinder. But looking at this, feels like that's all working just fine. So I feel like now the problem may actually be in these little pieces. And they come out 3, 5, 3, 3 and 1 in that order. So 3 was on the bottom. When I look at the key, there's a bit of a indication of how it might work. So each of these has a groove indented on it. They look like they could be identical, but they're not. So this goes like, these pieces go like this. What you can see me trying to do here is to align the little, I think they're called tumblers maybe, up with the points on the key to see if they're in the correct order or not. Something that I'll come back to a little bit later in the video. This is starting to make sense now, that even though there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tabs or bumps on the key, there are only 5. Look, these things, I don't know what they're called, but there are 5 of these things and 7 bumps. And the reason I've figured out why is because this part of the lock here inside, when you put the key in from one side, it's actually got to have space for here, so this moving part takes up the space of the other 2 of these bits, if that makes sense. So I believe that I've figured out the order that these need to go in, which would be the 3 first, so that when this key comes through from this side, the first and the second bump on the key are not in use. So I'm going to put this together and test my theory. And so the 3 will be hitting on this tab, and then the 5 onto this one, and then another 3, and then a 1, and then another 3. That's what I believe is the story here. These little pieces look like they're made from Teflon. These pieces are definitely plastic. So even though this lock looks really old, I am actually thinking it might not be as old as it looks. Still binding a bit. It's definitely a lot better on this side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this all back together and I'm going to go test it. Review the video. That's not going to work, is it? Okay, so after putting it back together, it tests fine, and I'm pretty happy that this is going to continue to work. So nearly time to turn the lights out onto this project and go on to the next one.